Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, bots and cons, to Tech Talk, the officially unofficial Transformers TCG podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Scott of VectorSigma.info. And Scott, there's a new Gears of War game out. There's a bunch of other games with updates. The NFL season is going on, but we have something a little more important to focus on at the moment, and we kind of got to get into it because the last few days, as of this recording, have been a little bit insane.
Yeah, a lot of spoilers to go over.
Yeah. So before we do dive into those seemingly never-ending spoilers, which we're not complaining about, don't get me wrong, there was a little bit of additional news for something down the pipe a little bit that everybody may be interested in at this stage. And that is that we actually got a little bit more detail about what the Energon Invitational is actually going to look like. Specifically, we have at least a preliminary schedule for the last chance qualifiers, which are going to take place on Friday of the event. And then we also have what's going to happen on Saturday, the first day of the Invitational. Specifically, we're going to have a set of constructed rounds followed up by a set of sealed rounds. So it seems to be causing a whole lot of discussion. There's spawned a whole bunch of threads, how people feel about it, what their thoughts are on it. So what are your initial thoughts now that we have a multi-format event, Scott?
Let me start with the LCQs. So,
sure.
I think they're going to start every hour, and if you go 4-0, so there'll be a lot of chances to qualify. So keep that in mind. That's the first aspect. So in terms of the split format, I think we knew it was going to be a split format. If you go back and listen to our interview with Drew, he was pretty.
It was not quite the worst kept secret. But
you don't have to read that much in between the lines to figure that out. He said multiple times that he felt that multi-format events determine the best player. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to realize that there was going to be a multi-event there. So anyone that's complaining, all right. How do I say this?
Trying to be a little political about it.
If anyone's complaining because it's a multi-format event, didn't listen to the information that was out there. So there's that aspect of it. So if the simple fact that it is a multi-format event is upsetting people, then they just, again, we're not taking in the stuff that's out there. And I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and that being said, I do think that you're allowed to prefer one or the other, but like you said, Scott, if it wasn't the worst kept secret, it was at least out there. There was information to give you that idea.
And in fairness, unless you're a new listener, you wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't also listen to that, in all likelihood.
Right.
So there's also that aspect. So I'm probably preaching to the choir on that one.
Right.
Secondly, if you prefer draft over sealed and would have preferred that those 3 rounds be draft, I can understand that to an extent, but without taking up a lot of time, and I didn't run a lot of numbers on this, I can tell you draft in this game would have been worse than sealed, because the way draft works is it's essentially, and I'm just going to use magic terms, it's a Rochester draft, i.e. open-faced for the characters.
Everybody sees what everyone else is drafting. It's not hidden.
On the character side, which means if it was the same number of packs, and I believe it is, and let's just assume, for argument's sake, it was a 6-person pod, which means all 36 characters would have been opened first. And then, quote, randomly, it would have been determined who got first pick all the way down to 6th pick, and then 6 would have chosen again in a typical snake draft format.
Right.
If you ever played fantasy football, snake draft format. So, would you rather give somebody first pick out of 36 characters or randomly first pick out of 6 characters, which is essentially what sealed deck is?
Additionally, and you mentioned this offline, Scott, and you may have, not to cut you off if you were getting to this, I think it would have been, to put it bluntly, a logistical nightmare to try and organize that many different pods at the event the first time around. Like, nobody, I take that back. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who have drafted. I highly doubt that every person that's going to be attending the Invitational has drafted before.
Correct. And and you need stricter judges to help people out just to make sure things are progressing correctly.
Absolutely.
And as somebody that's been in many draft tournaments, it's a timed event where somebody sits on the mic and says, okay, everyone take your first, like, I'll just shorten it, like, take your first pick, 10 seconds later, take your second pick, things like that.
And they literally count it down. He's not making that up.
And anytime there's a delay because one table all the way in the back is messing something up, the whole thing shuts down until that table is fixed.
Yep. Anytime you've opened a pack and you thought something was weird, you're like, oh, that's weird, and then you just stuff it in your bag because, you picked up one pack from the store or whatever, or you open your prize packs. No, the whole event stops to figure out what's going on.
Right. But the big thing for me mathematically is people complaining about the quality of, like, oh, this person, my opponents are all going to have super rares. My opponents are all going to have these insane cards. They would have better cards if you were drafting, because you would just have more opportunities to take the insane card you think is so insane and unstoppable that they would have a 6 times number of chances to get that. And then randomly that person would pick first. Additionally,
that's not factoring in, again, our co-hosts are very excited about this as well. One of the other pieces is that, as I had said earlier, many people have probably never drafted full stop, let alone for this game. There's a lot of skill that goes into playing limited, whether it's sealed or draft. And having a weaker player or somebody unfamiliar with a format or anything like that can drastically influence a draft. And it's not always, they feed the people next to them really good stuff. They could just be taking things at random, and then the whole table ends up all out of whack, sort of thing. It gets weird. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, the last thing I'm going to say is, because we'll talk about this at length in other shows.
Yes, of course.
It's a 1-day, 9-round event where only 3 of them are limited. And only the top 8 moves on to day 2. Now, top 32 get prizes. So that's let's leave that aside for a second. But the top 8 that get on to day 2 is really all anybody cares about, right?
Absolutely.
So, at Gen Con, there was a 78-person tournament, and only 8 people qualified on day 1. So, I think you should probably worry more about those 6 rounds of constructed and how you're going to treat, or what is it, 6 rounds? 6 rounds of constructed, and how you're going to treat them, because only a fourth of the field that even made day 2 at Gen Con, and I don't know what, and I guess I could figure out what percentage of them actually made top 8 of the actual open in the end. I can tell you it was low,
right?
Being one of them. So, I mean, you're not going to have that luxury anymore of playing in multiple qualifiers.
Yeah, so, this is it.
So to think that it's all luck, I don't, like, because of there's 3 rounds of sealed deck, I just don't even have a response.
Now, of course, there's going to be someone who does open the nuts, or somebody who opens hot garbage, because there is randomness in the packs, but everybody's there because they qualified through all these things. We're going to assume that everybody there is a competent player. You need to be able to pilot what's handed to you at a proficient level. I've seen plenty of people in other games, myself included, open bonkers sealed pools and then just punt it into the sun. It happens. And I think a lot of people have been focusing primarily on constructed for good reason. And they may not necessarily, just because they started 6-0, go 3-0 in the sealed portion. But since I brought up the football season, don't worry about the playoffs in week 2 and week 3. You got to get there first, and then you address the next piece. I'm not saying don't prepare for that, but you do have 6 rounds of constructed to worry about first.
The only argument I've seen that's salient is really good commons at the character slot in Siege 1. But as we're going to go over today, we've seen really good commons in the common slot in Siege 2.
Yeah, funny story.
So I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue, and obviously this talk has died down since the spoiler started. So, I mean, I think some of that has been alleviated, and I was told I brought I brought this concern up to certain people and was told it's not going to be as much of a factor when you factor Siege 2 in. And I can tell you that based on the comments I've seen so far, I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
So I'm not super worried about that. But the last thing I'll say is I've been playing in Steel Deck tournaments since 1990 something, and
Scott, that was last century.
a lot of times, especially in certain games, the good players like still made the finals of the sealed events just as much as they did in the constructed events.
Right.
So, like, in all honesty, I understand people's concern, but I don't think it's warranted.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I fall into the camp that you had described earlier that I personally prefer draft. I can accept the limitations as it would be, both for this event and in this game, why it's going to be sealed. And as you said earlier and highlighted, that the fact of the matter is this was probably always on the table even before any of the information from the Wizards of the Coast team came out. And then they only reinforced it by all the things that they had said. They've frequently said that Siege 1 and Siege 2 work real well together. You know, yeah. And to your point that some of the concerns that people had, they seem to be smoothing out. So, and we'll be getting into them shortly, which, by the way, we're telling you right now, this will probably get split into two, so tune in right afterwards for the next one.
Yeah, and there's a much higher percentage chance of you calling the metagame wrong and showing up with a bad constructed deck than there is you opening up a really unplayable limited deck, in my opinion.
That's what it seems like so far. Because there's going to be a lot, again, we're right up against, as we said before, where just as leading into Gen Con, there's not going to be a whole lot of time to get yourself familiar with the whole new set as well as how it interacts with the existing ones.
Right.
So any other thoughts on the Invitational, at least this little blurb that we got right now, Scott? Or are you ready to dive into the spoilers?
I have more thoughts, but for the sake of time, I will save them.
I'm sure we'll come back to it as we get more details and as other topics come up. So we're going to start off with the battle cards. These are basically in alphabetical order as opposed to any other sequence. And then we're going to move into the bot cards in a later section. Again, it'll probably get split into an independent show. So definitely check us out next time for that. The first one up on the list is Acute Reflexes. It's a white pip utility that provides focus 1, and when the upgraded character battles and you flip at least one white pip, it gets +1 attack, +1 defense until the end of the battle. I think you had mentioned this on Twitter, Scott, but there seems to be more of an emphasis overall in this set on white pips.
Yes. By the time you hear this, you'll see 2 more spoilers from us that focus on them as well, or peripherally focus on them. I think that's part of what people aren't understanding. I'm not talking like
they don't literally have white pip references on them.
Not like Mirage ability. I'm just like a lot of things key off of flipping things in a specific order or flipping a specific type of thing that you would not normally have. Like nothing says like flip 1 orange and do X. Like, you know, something that you would obviously have in your deck. Like, it's more complicated than that. So in my opinion, it leads you down the white path.
Right.
So like this card is an enabler for those types of things in a roundabout way, as well as bold or anything that would key off defense, tough would as well.
Right. Now we've
as
already
simply helping you attack or defend.
Right. Although it does do that because we have seen already the influence that the focus on General Optimus, old General Optimus, spoiler alert for later, and we were eventually going to get a upgrade that provides focus. And do you feel that this one's making a constructed splash since we now are going to be more consciously aware of limited? Is that where you're anticipating it, or are you thinking this is going to be a sealed all-star?
I mean, it's definitely going to be a sealed all-star. It has you get no static buff, right?
Correct.
Other than the focus?
Correct.
I mean, obviously the +1 defense is worth a card. That's been established. The +1 attack is not worth a card. So I think in mixed pips decks, this has an outside chance of making it. I just don't think it'll ever probably, in the end, would be like in your pile of, I'd like to play this card, but it's probably just not good enough.
I feel like this is often going to be card number 41 through 43, where I'm going to end up putting it down on a list that I'm writing up, and then as I'm shaving cards here, cutting cards there, it's going to end up still in the binder or in the box, because it feels like it should be really powerful. The focus going to dig for those white pips, so it's, I air quotes, always have the +1/+1, but you're not really going to always have it, unless you're playing an inordinate amount of white pips, which, yes, this is a white pip to begin with, so I think the math is going to get weird as we are, even though these mixed pip builds are becoming more popular, and the people like you, Scott, are figuring out all the math on it for the appropriate way to structure them. I personally still, maybe it's old school thinking, but I'm still leaning towards the more purist view, and it's hard for me to justify cutting other blanks or other white pips that I really want in favor of this, at least right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think if you look at it from this takes up my upgrade slot for the turn, and my utility slot is generally, for lack of a better term, more utility.
You don't say.
Just like more splashy effects, let's just put it that way. I just don't think this is, quote, enough compared to other options.
It almost feels like, I really like focus, as I was saying about General Optimus, and I like the idea of the focus ability in general, but I kind of want it to be innate to the character. In this case, I guess it's half a card, because you do get other effects. It's not literally just focus 1, but it may need to do just a hair more. But it's something I want to keep an eye on, because we are going to see when we get to the characters that there are a number of ones, like you said, that they're looking for specific things. Giving them focus is only going to help them.
But it's when they're looking for it, and not every character is during combat.
Correct.
A lot of them are, but not every single one. So.
Of course, yeah. And there's definitely going to be times where, well, that focus doesn't help you when you're trying to transform in the middle of a turn.
Right. Exactly.
So, anything else you wanted to bring up about Acute Reflexes?
Nope.
Sounds good. Then we will move on from there to Backfire. So this is one of the new secret actions, and it's actually basically, well, it is a Decepticon secret action. It's a blue pip. You reveal it when one of your Decepticons defends, and when revealed, do damage to the attacker equal to the number of upgrades on that attacker. Now, you could score a free KO via this card, air quotes, free, but I'm honestly anticipating this is often going to be a secret action zap. Now, blue zaps haven't really been earth-shattering up to this stage. The fact that it's a secret action and you're doing this all on your opponent's turn can matter, and clearly it could scale. And again, spoiler for later on, we're going to see probably a few more upgrades on individual characters than you might have before. But are you expecting this thing to have a huge splash, Scott?
Sideboards only, maybe against cars. Definitely against certain upgrade-heavy decks that want to play, like, some of the... I don't know what they're called. Like, whatever attack drone and padded armor or whatever they're...
I think it was you or somebody had called them, like, the collection upgrades. Yeah. Because you collect them over the course of the game. I don't know if there's actually a name for that grouping, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, the way I look at this is, like, you want to treat this as, like, marksmanship through whatever you're going to play, and, like, I don't know it's not targeted, like, it's going to be up to your opponent, because it's whoever they attack with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see Shockwave running this as a one-of main deck, but in general, I think, like, it's going to be very specific sideboard until we see other cards that want to key off things like this.
I would agree. I don't really have much to add on this one, so we can move on. It just seems like it's so narrow that I have a hard time envisioning it making a whole lot of main decks. At least, again, right now. We're still early on. One of the other recent reveals is Conversion Engine. Now, this is another utility, another white pip utility. It provides one static attack. You can only put it on a character that has more than one alt mode. and at the end of your turn, flip the upgraded character into another mode. Now, we're not to get ahead of ourselves. We have more triple changers. Is this doing enough for you, Sky? Because it seems like getting the free transform for those guys is pretty important. Not necessarily the new ones, just in general, I mean.
It's going to be hard. Like, you have to play to get to this card because, as it stands now, so the only two triple changes I really like this on are, well, I mean, if you can get it to stick on Sandstorm, it's decent.
Mm-hmm.
It's good on Astro Train, regardless, in my opinion, because of the train mode, I think you only need one, or the spaceship mode, you only need one upgrade. Right. So it's good there regardless, and then I think it's pretty good on Blitzwing.
Well, the problem is that for Astro Train, at the very least, this is not a May. At the end of your turn, so you would have to transform out of that mode.
But you're going to want to attack in the train mode anyway.
Right, yeah, attack in that mode and then get back into the whichever. Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head which one's the one upgrade mode. I think it's the spaceship.
Yeah, we can get to this later, but his downside is that I don't know that the three upgrade ones are ever going to stick in Constructed. Like, you just have to be aware that your opponent could just destroy one of them and ruin your whole, just kill him.
Yeah, because he'll be exposed on defense.
Right, so you need a way to basically, again, he's like an extra padding attack drone magnet. So as long as you have those, it's fine. I guess...
yes, I guess. If by some definition of fine, only because then you had to have those.
Right, exactly. So, I guess the short answer, I can't see there being, unless there's other triple changers or... because they say more than one alt mode, things like whatever they would consider Overlord type characters to be.
Right. I think they're leaving it open for that down the road when 6-shot Overlord and those sort of guys show up.
So the short answer is I don't know, but I don't think this is playable. If that is an unfortunate answer, I'm sorry, but
it just doesn't. It's cute. So you would need. To me, you need a scenario where you want... So it allows those triple changers to coexist in a composition that also contains another character that wants to transform basically every turn. Now, the problem is that a lot of those triple changers are high enough star costs that who are you pairing them with that also wants to transform, provides enough value? So in my head, I'm thinking, say, Blitzwing, you get in one mode... and then you transform either to Stealth or Brave so that you can either protect him or defend as appropriate, and then trigger Happy, I guess, so that this way you're not tying up your flips. But that then necessitates that if you don't see this, or implies that if you don't see this thing, now your whole flip sequence is out the window, and you could be up a creek, just because you can't do all the things you need to do in the time you need to do them.
And we've seen in testing that he's just a very weak attacker if you have to keep him in the Brave mode all the time.
Right. Well, and that's why I was thinking for this, you could potentially get in one of those other modes, get back into Brave mode. But again, you have to have this in order to pull that off.
Yeah, I meant if you didn't draw it.
Yeah. Now, there's the potential that we're going to see other triple changers, but yeah, as compared to Acute Reflexes, which I felt was kind of like a hair behind where it is, this one feels like it's a step behind Acute Reflexes, where it needs to do even more than it already is. But depending on the other triple changers, maybe not.
I just think this needed to have green on it if it's going to be this. If it's going to be this niche.
Yeah, if it's that narrow, I agree with you. And now that you said that aloud, yeah, I definitely could picture a green pip on this, and it would be perfectly fine. I don't think that would be ridiculous at all.
No, I think those decks basically have to have this card,
right?
And they aren't going to have them.
Unfortunately, yeah. So, those times where you don't, you're going to feel real bad.
Right.
So I think that does it for Conversion Engine, unless you had any other last things to throw in.
Nope.
So from there, we have one of the official previews, and that is Crowbar. It's a double black pip card, no stars as compared to the Soundwave one. It gives +2 attack, it's a weapon, and when the upgraded character attacks, scrap this card after battle. So, combo grenade launcher, primary laser with double black pips. I guess if you hit a transformer enough with a crowbar, it just snaps in half.
Yes.
I guess. I'll be honest, I'm not very excited about really any of the black pip cards in Siege 1 or Siege 2 so far. I mean, some of them are clearly better than others, but I'm not incredibly enthused by most of them. Do you feel differently about this thing, Scott?
No, I mean, we have our 4x4 grid that we can discuss again if we need to. But
well, I think it's worth bringing up the abridged version, since we're going to be talking about a lot of these black pip cards.
I mean, I still think we're in a situation where if the meta is heavily armed, that the use of black becomes extremely worse. Because,
of course.
Because you can just never... I mean, I guess technically you can flip enough blacks to have pierce equal to your attack, and then it would be essentially... It's the number of situations where this is going to be better than getting an orange is rare.
Correct.
On attack, and obviously it does nothing on defense.
That's the thing, is it... The way I'm looking at a lot of these is that I'm trying to think of the cleanest way to put this, that it's almost half a pip. So you're getting your +1 attack or +1 defense, and they do their thing. But when you have a black pip, it's only like a counter pip. You only want it against those blue decks. So if the blue decks aren't relevant, it doesn't matter. Whereas the orange or blue, for lack of a better way to describe it, are good in all matchups kind of things. Like, you can still do your game plan. And whereas this is necessitating a specific matchup.
Yeah, it's low. You want low attack characters to get this. They weren't going to do damage over their inborn defense.
Right. Which, given that we already have cards such as Grenade Launcher and a number of other things, odds are you're going to be able to push that attack value just by virtue of oranges or static attack buffs or whatever over most defense values anyway. Even as from playing Blaster a lot, you'd be surprised how often you can get a static 3 attacker to double digits and just go, okay, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I just feel that like an off-color grenade launcher would be better than this in every single situation.
And that also confuses me. I get that it's a double pip, so I guess inherently it has a certain threshold of power because it has 2 pips on it, regardless of what they are. But I don't see why this scraps itself at the end of combat. I don't see why that's really necessary. And I mentioned this offline, but in general, I feel most of the black pip cards need, at least as I'm looking at it right now, and I could be totally wrong by the time we get the whole spoiler, but most of them seem as though they need either white, blue, or orange attached to them.
For constructed, I feel like these are totally for limited.
Yes, when we shift over to limited, things completely change, and having those would make it... We're talking a totally different story there.
Yeah, I just don't see this playable in constructed.
Right. What about for limited, since you brought it up? Is this you're excited about opening this guy? Or this card?
Yeah, I mean, you would play it for sure.
I think I can agree with you.
I think the fact that it scraps itself actually helps you in limited because it goes back in your deck and you shuffle so quickly.
Yes, yeah, that I can definitely see. And I think they've mentioned that, they being Wizards, that obviously as we started out with the focus on various limited formats, but that the black pips do have a role in that capacity, and that is maybe not... I don't want to put words in their mouth and say it's the primary design space for it, but it certainly was a factor.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's move on from Crowbar, because I think we'll beat that one to death. Next up is Defensive Configuration. It's an orange pip utility. The upgraded character has an extra armor slot, and when you put this on a character, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an armor, play it onto the upgraded character. I would feel a lot better if this was an armor itself and then granted some sort of defensive bonus in addition but it's a very narrow field communicator, I guess. Clearly, you could plan things on top, but this one seems really weird. Do you feel otherwise, Scott?
No, I don't think this is playable.
Yeah, I'm not going to be very excited to open this one as my rare.
There's a lot of hoops to jump through that like, I mean, if this had a blue pip, maybe. I still probably wouldn't play it, but the fact that it has an orange pip makes it even worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea. You double up armors, you get yourself some bashing shield protection, but I don't know.
At the cost of your utility slot.
Yes. But if you were to have 2 decent armors, I think in a defensive build, I think that's reasonable. But I don't know.
If it let you play an extra armor out of hand, it might be a different story, because you can get back like the rock, paper, scissors types armors and not take up your turn. Like, if it gave you like a new design's ability, I think it would be better. This is just like you had too much setup for like you said, a non-static card that just doesn't do enough. It's like, how much play does Tooth and Claw see? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if it had a blue pip, it may be because then, the Wave 3 Megatrons of the world that care how many. I don't think he wants a thing, and off the top of my head, and I should have looked at this. I think he just wants 3 upgrades. He doesn't care if it's necessary. So then that way, okay, well, I have 2 armors and this, whatever. It's fine. It still triggers the strafing run.
It's Astro Train also. Yep.
Yes. But I don't think that's enough. I will say I like the artwork. I don't know. Yeah. There's something about the artwork looks cool to me. Mm-hmm. Moving from there, we have another official preview, Designated Target. Another double black pip. Each of your characters gets, I almost said +2, Pierce 2 until end of turn.
It'd be a lot better if it was +2.
Well, you can't have everything. I actually don't mind this one out of all of them, but that's comparing them directly. This was previewed in conjunction with the Constructicons. Or maybe not. It was previewed alongside a suggested Constructicon list. And I think that's reasonable if you get a wider, small guy build, such as the Constructicons, or pick your combiner team of choice. It makes sense, because then your guys that only have base 2 attack. But again, since it's double black pip, it's not helping you on defense, then those guys just croak. Is this doing enough? I'm not sure, but I at least see where this is going as compared to, say, Crowbar.
Yeah, if you anticipate the meta for Siege 4 or for Siege 2 being blue heavy, you could play this main deck. Otherwise, it's a sideboard only card, in my opinion.
Yes.
For that style of deck. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what you need to ask yourself is, let's talk on color and say the deck is blue. Mm-hmm. And you have and you are playing Constructicons, you're a 6-wide deck. This card, essentially, against a 3-wide deck going, second or whatever, should say, essentially, your guys are doing at least 6 damage.
Right.
The question just becomes is, if you were playing on color, like, how bigger they are, or a Leap in a Battle, can't you get there? You're going to get there against an orange deck anyway. So again, we're back to the same Pierce grid of, it's only good against defensive decks.
Right.
Again, I understand, like, if you're attacking somebody, even in an aggressive deck that happens to have, like, 3 armor, or, like...
I mean, 2 is not unreasonable for some of these guys, where a random Constructicon has 3 attack. You attack... I mean, the first guy that's coming to mind is Barrage, but he probably won't be in alt mode, but let's just say he is. He has 2 defense. So, it's fine, I guess. But
it's giving all your 3 power attackers +1 attack. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's not. That's all it's ever doing. Like, that's what Pierce all it ever does. Like, it's only ever getting over your opponent's armor. Like, and if you're low to begin with, chances are you can just play an action that's giving you a higher static attack, which is always going to have play against orange decks, and is likely going to be whatever the power of that action is, -2 against the defensive deck, like, that's where you need to figure that out. And that's why I feel like it's a sideboard card. But I mean, like, Constructicons did have a problem against, like, aerial bots, for example, was a lot of their problems. So, like, this would
they had a lot of problems, not just aerial bots.
Yeah.
but I mean, I get where you're going.
Blue decks, as an aggressive deck, Blue decks was their problem. So I can see where this would fit into the sideboard of Constructicons and maybe help them.
But if they... I mean, not to go too far down that path, but of specifically Constructicons, I mean, if you're a base orange Constructicon build, you're going to board in this, I guess? And if you're base blue, you should already have 1 billion Pierce effects, or that's what you're going for, so I guess hypothetically you just throw this on the pile.
I think it's a sideboard card that may see play. Like, that's the way I see it now, because I just don't think that, like, you still have to attack with multiple guys to get the Pierce effect, and I think that's the thing. Like, I can just I get that you're taking a turn where you're attacking with multiple guys at once, so you don't have more than one action phase and more than one upgrade phase,
right?
But, like, how many times is it going to be better than the bigger they are? Like,
well, I think it's certainly not going to replace it, but it gives you 6 the bigger they are. Because you'd obviously, if you're playing a primarily blue, splashing for these as your blanks, quote unquote, that it gives you those extra copies so you can find it. Because there are plenty of games where we've all stared at it, like, if I just drew one, I'd get there, but you never see it.
Yeah. Sideboard card, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you feel it's playable unlimited just because of the double pips?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely playable unlimited. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's a common, so expect to see it. The next one
Pierce 2 is good enough with a black pip, double black pips. So
right. Next one up is Guarded Posture. So this is a new armor. It's an orange armor that gives +2 defense, but -1 attack. Now, you were real hot on this, if I recall correctly, Scott, when it first got previewed. Do you still feel the same way?
Yeah.
So for all the people out there who are doubting that, well, why would I not want to do more damage, especially given, well, right now we're looking at a whole lot of orange everywhere. What's so great about sacrificing that attack for the extra defense?
2 things. Let's compare this to Erratic Lightning. +3, -1. So if we assume that's the right ratio, where 3 attack equals 1 defense, we're ahead in that game, right? Because we're not getting -6 attack, right? Yeah. So clearly those ratios are completely out the window when it comes to this card. Like, so far out there, it's not even funny. The big thing is just that, like, I think you can build a deck in a way that you're going to have more overkill than you are, I missed by 1. You're going to remember the situation missed by 1.
Well, everybody always does.
Right. But in my opinion, more overkill occurs than missing by 1, and you're getting a static 2 defense at all times. I mean, I think if this was blue, it'd probably be too powerful.
Yes, I could see that.
But I really see barely any downside with this card at all.
So,
other than being orange. Other than being orange.
Well, yeah. To go back to our earlier point when we were discussing Pierce, if you drop this on a 2 defense guy before you factor in blue pips or anything else, that's 4 defense? Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid chunk, a pretty sizable wall that your opponent has to climb over before they actually start pushing damage. Now, of course, everybody out there, I'm sure, is screaming at either their monitor or their phone or wherever you're watching or listening to this. Well, what about Bashing Shield? Yes, there's always that caveat for every armor, but this seems like a reasonably solid armor.
It has a 2 on it. I mean, that doesn't exist very often in armors that stick around.
I was about to say that, yeah. There's very few instances in general of that particular number on the blue side of things.
Right. I just think the numbers are not equal. Like, I think this could be -2, +2, and I would still probably play it. Like, I just feel like this is completely slanted in favor of the defensive deck to the point of like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it'll make decks because it's not green, and a lot of armors that people play are green if they're going to be that route.
I think that may be a more damning thing for it than anything else.
Yeah, but I don't. From a pure numbers perspective, like, I don't know how this is not a great card.
Yeah, like I said, I anticipate the fact that since you can't rely on it, and we're long since past wave 1 where it's, okay, well, I just play reinforced plating because that's what I got, or body armor, or whatever. Now you have alternative options, and while the +2 is great, if you don't get to play it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So, and again, as you pointed out, since it's not a blue pip, you could run into some weird inconsistencies constructing your deck where, again, if you're trying to be defensive, maybe you don't have room. Or maybe this ends up making aggro decks in order to, like you said, if you're typically overkilling by 1 billion, who cares about the -1 attack? This just blunts one of your opponent's attacks and buys you another turn, or forces them to have a direct damage card somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had games like that where it's like, oh, Grimlock's not a great example, but get in with whoever for 1 million, crush your guy, and most of the damage goes wasted. So here, your guy may live to see another turn.
And there's situations where your extra 1 armor saved your guy from dying. So 2 is definitely going to happen more often. So.
Well, that, and it also changes the numbers for those direct damage cards where the 1, yes, you live, or maybe the 2 means that instead of surviving with 3 health, you survive with 4. So now they must invest another attack, not just a card.
Yeah, I think aggro and aggro matchups, this is going to be a very good card.
Yeah, we've already seen what Ramhorn can do. Now, we can't pump this out, but Bolster has been growing in popularity. So yep. I could see this being in some boards, or maybe even main decks, since, you can always just flip it on combat.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Any other thoughts for Guarded Posture, Scott?
Nope.
All right, so we'll move on to Hidden Fortification. So this is another secret action, no faction affiliation this time. It's a blue pip, and you reveal it when one of your characters defends. And when revealed, that character gets tough 3 until end of battle, as opposed to end of turn. So tell us about the new evasive maneuver, Scott.
Remember how when we used to talk about Battlefield Report, and I said it was going to be ubiquitous in blue decks, and it's really not, because in reality, it doesn't actually increase your defense much more than you probably would have.
Yeah, unless you had the double blue, you could have gotten 1 anyway.
Right. So, like, I was wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
This one, you get a bunch of defense, like, guaranteed in your blue deck. So this, to me, should be, at first glance, the most staple card, I think, so far in the set, outside of a character that might see play in a bunch of decks. Like, this should be almost like ubiquitous in the metagame. I just fail to see how it can't be.
Now, are you saying so let me ask you this then. Obviously, it would be included in there for a number of reasons, and there I'm referring to Shockwave builds, but is this the cornerstone? Is this the missing piece for that build? Because I know that guy was very popular, and you were looking at him for a long time.
The builds that multiple made top 8 in a thing, and one of them made the finals of a larger event. So yes, I think it's definitely good there.
I mean, it's clearly going to be good, but while it did perform well at Gen Con for that one event, and then it was played by, I know, at least one person in top 32, it was then played again at the largest qualifier outside of Gen Con that I'm aware of. I don't know, and you would know better than me, how much more frequently it has been appearing. Obviously, people are trying it, but I don't know how much success people are having. I
It
take
made
it back.
the
There was
finals
one
of the large London event.
I was about to say that as I was saying it, I'm like, wait, didn't it do well somewhere else? But so clearly it's going to make an appearance there. It's a good secret action in general, but you're saying it's going to, where every blue deck is going to be looking at this thing.
I mean, your guy gets essentially 3 to 4 defense if you're a blue deck.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I had started out with, I mean, we've seen it. Everybody's seen evasive maneuvers to this point, and I don't think anybody was too excited about that card. And that is probably where people's minds are going to, hence why I'm drawing this out. One of the other notable pieces is that there's no current way to interact with your opponent's secret actions other than, activating them.
Right.
So,
that's the point.
Exactly, yeah. So that evasive maneuvers dies to bashing shield, and then you just get kicked in the teeth. This will provide it. So, I guess they can have a gyro or something like that to turn off tough specifically.
Sure.
But other than that, you should be getting your defense out of this. You're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, this card's great.
Yeah.
I'm shocked it's blue, to be honest with you. That's how good I think this card is.
Does that turn you off at all that since you'd start off with the battlefield report analogy or opener, does that make you second guess yourself at all?
I mean, I always thought Battlefield Report was really good when we were talking about preview cards. As soon as I started playing with it, I knew what the situation was.
Oh, like. I mean, since this card happens to be blue and you had said that you're surprised that it also has a blue pip, does that set off any warning bells in your head that, like, they needed to go that extra length in order to make it playable?
It's probably the end of combat instead of end of turn thing, because that way, like, wider decks don't get the effect multiple times. But
yeah,
I can't see a situation where this wouldn't be your best action play for the turn as a defensive deck, unless you could have killed something that hasn't attacked yet through direct damage.
Makes sense.
And, like, unfortunately, whatever. Like, multiple actions in a turn, this is also going to be really powerful.
Well, yes, we've already seen that any deck that can play many actions in a single turn they're typically happy to see secret actions.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much else to be said about this thing. Is there anything else you want to add on this one?
I just think it's going to be the most played card outside of specific characters that I feel like we're going to cover.
Right. Makes sense to me. I mean, we still have a lot of set to go, so maybe there's going to be other ones at that level.
As it stands now, yeah.
But speaking of other impactful cards, let's talk about Involuntary Promotion. So it's another black pip card. You choose one of your characters. You return another character that has the same number of stars or fewer from your KO area to the battlefield, fully repaired. Move the damage counters and upgrades from the chosen character to the returned character, and then KO the chosen character. So basically, you pick somebody who's equal stars or less and swap them.
Yes.
It seems okay, Scott. It seems okay.
This is the most powerful battle card I've seen in the set.
I would agree with that. Can you tell us why, Scott? Tell us what everyone has won.
I mean, Battle Masters exist, so...
Yes, that should jump out to everybody immediately.
This is another sacrifice outlet plus value for Battle Masters. It does change the attack order. Likely cannot be played, like, on turn 2. And early, like a Piece for Tyranny can, but will definitely help in the mid game.
I guess do you think you're required to have a target to return? So you can't just play it to kill the Battle Master.
How does it read?
So it says choose one of your characters, return another character that has the same number of stars or fewer. And then
you
blah,
have
blah, blah.
to do that part first. You have to do things in order. So if you don't have the return part, you can't do the rest. It would just stop. It's like...
Well, the very first thing is choosing one of your in-play characters.
That doesn't do anything.
Right.
So you would choose it, yes, and then if you can't do the second... It's like writing computer code. Like I assume I've been wrong before, but I assume it's like writing computer code. Like you do A, yes, you can choose a character. We got that part. You haven't lost the game. We got that part.
Yes.
If you believe you can't do the second part, then you just stop.
Yeah.
So you can't return a character. I think you just stop.
Right. I'm sure that'll get clarified pretty quickly, but that's how I would expect it to work as well. So you can't get that free Battlemaster activation. But sorry, I interrupted your thought. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is just ridiculous with Battlemasters. This is just like, I mean, what you have to understand is it's sort of like it's not insane and broken, but it's like a swap parts sort of for the guy you're sacrificing.
Right.
Because all the upgrades go on. So you get double use out of the upgrades. So that's powerful. So you're just basically moving all the upgrades. I'm assuming you're sacrificing a tapped character. Let's just put that out there. Like,
yeah, barring weird circumstances, that's probably going to be the case.
So at absolute worst, this is like a swap missions that kills the guy instead of tapping it, which obviously is a much bigger cost, and moves the upgrade. So like you can look at it that way, where it's a swap missions that moves your upgrades. Worst case scenario, except for you actually lose the guy. So like that's the minimum way you can look at this card. But then there starts to get scenarios of Battlemasters involved, and now we're at extremely high power level. So like that's why I say this is the most powerful card. It doesn't mean it's going to be the most played, because I just feel like only certain types of decks, and I don't know what they are yet. Like, I mean, they're going to involve Battlemasters, but like, you have to basically have a deck similar to like my General Optimus build, where you have like the same star costs going on with a Battlemaster.
Right.
Or like a 4-wide deck that uses a Battlemaster. Things like that, where you're going to get serious value out of it. I haven't thought of a lot of scenarios where non-Battlemasters will see advantage over this. Again, over I Still Function. That's the key.
Right.
The key is, when is this more powerful than I Still Function? And the only time I can think where that's the case right this second is the Battlemaster situation. But I may be wrong. Like, I just haven't thought of all the scenarios yet off the top of my head. But like, at first glance, the only time it's more powerful than I Still Function is with Battlemasters.
Now, the only other scenarios that I was thinking of offline, there are two. And there may be others, only because I didn't actively go through card by card in the app to try and determine. But we were talking about it offline. What other things care when one of your guys gets KO'd? And there's Crash Landing, which I don't know if anybody's going to build a Crash Landing deck around this thing, but maybe we'll just throw it out there. I mean, the bots that you would want to pop with this in conjunction with Crash Landing may have a decent star count, may have a decent attack, and then you just go, okay, this is a 5 direct damage action or 7 direct damage action, if that exists. The other thing is Triptychon. So because of the revenge abilities, which we are, I guess...
I forgot about revenge.
We're kind of assuming that there will be more. We've only seen the ones, to my knowledge, that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only ones we've seen are on the Triptychon mini-bots. But even there, returning, you pop Brunt to bring back Full Tilt or Wipe Out, whichever one's the one that Plasma bursts, and bring him back into play. Oh, I'll destroy your weapon or armor, get him with this guy, the shock guy, and then they have to run into it.
Right.
It seems reasonable. Now, the Black Pip in that build, I don't know how much it's going to matter. Maybe it will, because you want to potentially be blue splashing for Black Pip so that your little guys will, ever do anything of value. But yeah, I agree with you. This seems to be, so far, the swingiest card that we've seen up to this point.
I guess the other situations are if you sack, for some reason, like a low hit point that has a bunch of damage on them, and then all the damage transfers to a higher hit point character where it's not as much of a factor. You're basically like, oh, this guy's going to die anyway. I might as well just swap it for a guy that I'm going to get back that now is going to live an extra. That's not irrelevant. And the same thing would happen if you're just swapping for a better attacker also. Like, I'm going to swap my chop shop for a better 6. Like, I don't think Insecticons would play this, but like, obviously I swap my damaged chop shop for a now newly damaged ransack has value there as well. So other characters have the ransack ability. But again, I still think I still functions just better there. But those are the types of situations where I think you could also see play is like, if you're just basically like a low hit point character for a higher hit point character, you're just making a better trade at that point.
Right. I want to say there might be something weird you could do with Elita 1 with this, but I don't know.
Probably. Good point.
I'd have to. I'm only thinking of this now, so I apologize everybody out there listening or watching that I didn't have something lined up, but I'm writing this down to think about for later, because there may be something weird with that where you can keep chaining these, or because my thought process as it started was, if you get back, and this was because of what you were saying, Scott, say you pop one of your characters, you get with a bunch of damage, you bring back someone with less health, they're going to immediately get KO'd.
Right.
What does that do for you? Is there something you can do that's interesting there? I don't think so, because I don't think there's any triggers that say when one of your other characters is KO'd, zap their guy, or plasma burst their guy, or one shell stand their guy. It's just the Elita 1 scenario. So I'll have to think about that one. I don't want to drag it out.
Yeah, but she could use her leap into battle ability on the character, which is, in my opinion, hard to pull off because she usually dies on your opponent's turn. So now she would die actively. Hopefully, whatever she would play off the leap into battle, leap of faith ability,
right,
would be active on the new character. So yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about her. That's a combo with her.
I apparently, as Dan in chat, I don't think he's in chat. He's not, but he dubbed me the other day that apparently all that evil's getting put on me, and I just come up with all that nonsense. So,
yeah, it's fair.
I'll have to come up with those at some other point. But anyway, any other thoughts on Involuntary Promotion? I actually think that, I don't know what it is about the artwork. It's not, there are some cards where I look at the art and I just say, wow, that's really cool art, because it's just really impressive the way it's composed or drawn or colored or whatever. I don't know. I just really like this art, and there isn't a whole lot going on. It's just two bots standing there looking at each other, but I don't know. I like the art on this one.
Yeah, I think this is the most powerful card.
Yeah.
All right. From a battle card perspective.
Yes, right. So we'll move on from there. We'll talk about Minor Med Kit, or Minor Medic Kit. It's another double black pip. It's a utility. The upgraded character has +2 health.
And the next battle card we're going to talk about is...
Yep. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about this one. Limited. I mean, I do like the uniqueness of the +2 health. I'll put that out there, because I really like Energy Pack. This is another way to do it. I don't think I really want a card slot on this in Constructed, though.
That's way worse, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. No arguments there. So moving from there, we have Pincer Movement. It's a 1-star battle card. It's an orange and a blue pip. When one of your Decepticons attacks an enemy this turn, you get an extra attack this turn, but only with one of your other Decepticons against the same enemy. The first thing that I saw when this was revealed, I think it was on Facebook. I don't remember. What was that?
The sound wave thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Sound wave, and just get a whole bunch of untaps and ideally do something really mean and just eliminate an opposing character.
The next turn.
There are challenges for this. So hypothetically, you're going to get, let's say you do it with Laserbeak. You can get him for Pierce 2, untap, or get him for Pierce 2, get him with Soundwave, who may or may not be big enough to close the deal there, because he does have a base 6, but you're not going to get your action for the turn because you'd be playing this. And then if that character is going to be exposed next turn, get him with Laserbeak again, or, if you do it on a wheel turn, you get that on tap and you can get in immediately. Right. I think that's what was that?
Sure.
I mean, it's a good use. The problem is that I don't think you can rely on that because it's another star card. So how many of these are you running in a deck where now you've already taken up 16 stars between Soundwave and Laserbeak, 17 with this?
Successful Decepticon decks are wide if they're aggressive, or Shockwave if they're
you're not wrong.
so if they're not, so like I just don't see getting extra attacks does not matter because your opponent still gets to defend multiple times, so it's only good against other orange decks. And like, if you want to do this, just play a wider team. Like, I don't see the use for this card as it stands right now. Let's just put it that way.
It's a budget all-out attack.
Yes,
I guess,
or a budget going second. Like I don't.
Well, there is that option too. The Soundwave thing, like I said, is cool. And I'm excited because there's something that plays well with Soundwave. But yeah, I agree with you. Right now, unless we get additional untaps or other ways to abuse this effect, and even if we do, how many of these are you running in your deck? And can you consistently count on finding it to do the thing? I don't know.
Well, we said back then that like Soundwave, Rat Bat, and another cassette leaves you a star card. So maybe we could try it with this being the star cards.
Well, you certainly could, but even then, my complaint is the inconsistency there. It's the one. If your deck hinges on finding that one of, that's a problem.
No, it'd be a 3 of at that point. It'd be a 3.
It would. Well, Rat Bat was what, 6? I want to say.
Yeah, so you get 6,
okay. Yeah, so you
could. Yeah.
Okay. When you said one star card, in my head it was just literally one. And it also does help Rat Bat because he cares about multiple pip colors. So maybe.
Sure. That's the only scenario I can see where it matters.
Yeah, as of right now, that's where I'm going with it also.
Yep.
So moving from pincer movement, we have our last battle card, unless I missed some, which is entirely possible.
We definitely have gotten more characters than
yes.
So far.
So the last battle card is Point Position. It's a black and blue pip. It's a utility, and the upgraded character has Brave while tapped. If I had had the foresight to do this in a different order than alphabetical, I may not have finished with this card. Just saying.
Okay. This card's okay. It's like Bravery, but not as good.
Well, that's the problem. Even with having tried Bravery actually a lot recently, one of the big advantages is, okay, well, I'll slam it on a bot so that it can defend post-wheel in the turn where your important characters would be exposed. This gets turned off as soon as that happens, so womp womp.
Right. It's not as good, but that's what you get for slapping black pips on cards.
I guess. And unfortunately, because I am on the lookout personally for a lot of either orange and black or blue and black pipped cards for a number of different decks, and even in those, I don't think I'm very excited to play this particular one as the actual card text, which is kind of a recurring theme for a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me. So, as I said, those are all the battle cards, unless I missed them, and if we did, I apologize. We'll clearly circle back and bring them in for a future show.
We previewed the orange one, so
yes. Well, we don't usually go over those. I was going to close out with, if you want to see the ones that we previewed, you want to head over to vectorsigma.info, and they are already live by the time this is hitting your ears.
Yep.
So we're definitely looking forward to more of them coming out, and our next episode is going to include the bot characters from this reveal cycle. Is there anything else you wanted to call out before we close up shop for this particular recording, Scott?
No, like we said, the full spoilers on there is on the site organized technically by like release date, unless I accidentally move the cards around. So, and again, shout out to all the kind of influencers, I guess I'll call them, we have the list of them. If you're watching it visually on there. Sorry if we didn't mention them by name. For those listening audio, we have the list available on the YouTube. So
yeah, I try and make it a point to have them up there, give people credit where credit is due. And like Scott said, shout out to everybody who's been revealing everything. It is exciting when these sort of things are in the hands of not just us or the first party, but all content creators to get all of their initial thoughts and excitement in whatever media they happen to produce. So that'll do it for this particular episode. But as I've mentioned multiple times already, definitely check out the next one where we're going to go over all the bots. And I think that does it. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And please tune in next time for more Tech Talk.
Hey guys, Dan here from VectorSigma.info. We wanted to take this moment to thank all of our patrons for believing in the service we're providing. If you're not yet a member of a Patreon, feel free to click on the link for other podcasts like this one, or verse videos, or any of the other great content that we provide on our YouTube channel. Thanks guys.